Hello, everyone. And there you are, and here I am. It's been a long time since I have sat down to do a podcast. Excuse me, I'm dealing with a little frog in my throat. But it's been a while since I've sat down to do this because I've been focusing on my live stage work. But over the past year, I guess, past few months especially, and especially in the last week, a lot has been on my mind. And I'm sure that a lot has been on your mind as well. So, this is the launch of a new show. It's called What's on Your Mind. Each week, I'm going to have a few guest stars who are going to join me, and we're going to talk about what's on their mind as well. Because I believe that if I'm thinking it, if I'm feeling it, I'm not alone, and other people are as well. Uh, to set the ground rules here, this show is about celebrating each other and celebrating whatever it is we're feeling. If you're feeling something, whether it's based on reality or not, uh, that doesn't matter because feelings are real. And when you're feeling something, whatever you're feeling at any given moment, uh, that needs to be acknowledged. One of the great things that I've learned about doing these podcasts that I did uh, religiously, if you pardon the expression, over the last few years, I've interviewed everyone from the biggest names in show business to people who were just starting out. And the one thing that everyone has in common, regardless of where you come from, regardless of what you've accomplished, regardless of any of the things that are part of what makes us unique to each other, is that we all want to acknowledge. We all want to know that we are being heard. And so today I'm going to bring on each of my guests individually to talk a little bit about what's going on with them. And, you'll also hear about other things that are going on as well, career wise. My first guest today, I am going to be a little sexist and say ladies first, and I'm going to bring on Ann Kittredge today. Ann Kittredge truly is, I can say, when I can count the friends on one hand, and there are many friends on that one hand, Ann Kittredge is definitely on that list. So, Ann, I'm thrilled that you said yes to being here to start off this new series. And I want to begin by asking you, what's on your mind today?
I am so grateful you invited me. I really am. Thank you. So, yeah, you said anything and I thought, I have to admit, I'm pretty careful about what I delve into on social media. Um, but it doesn't mean I don't have a lot going on in my head, that I'm not having a lot of conversations with friends. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to talk about this. When after the election in November, I did several performances. And it was, even though theoretically I've always understood how important theater is, for people's development and for an escape and all those different things. I have to say that after the election, it was a very palpable experience, and it really made me understand in a different way how important what we do really is to people's psyches. And that now extends to what I want to talk about, which is the fairness doctrine. I'm going to get into a little bit of politics, people. But are you familiar with the fairness doctrine?
I don't think I am.
Okay. This was a concept that began in the early 1940s, in which journalists were required to provide fair and balanced information to the American public. It was a doctrine that was run by the FCC. And the goal was to inform the Americans in a balanced and impartial way. And and the whole success of a democracy depends on how accurately informed the public is. And this it was in this era time that we had Walter Cronkite and Edward R. Murrow and John Chancellor. I mean, these were the people, and everyone trusted them and
Well,
believed.
if I could interrupt there for a moment, and also at that time, almost the entire nation got the same information.
And that gets into this conversation
Mhm.
because there were only three channels, right? Basically three channels, four if you include PBS eventually, but right. So there weren't a lot of options. And then when we got into the 1980s and there began to have more options for channels, some politicians felt that the doctrine was no longer necessary because with so many other sources to get news, they would be competing with each other and they would kind of self-monitor, and it was no longer necessary. So the fairness doctrine basically was allowed to expire, and literally, I'm not kidding, the very same year that the fairness doctrine expired in 1987 is when Rush Limbaugh came into started
Power.
started his career.
Wow.
And what is really interesting about this is there have been efforts to bring it back congressionally, legislatively, but they have failed since then. And I wanted to bring this up because I don't think people knows that this even ever existed, that there was ever an effort to protect the American public from being gaslit and being told things that are completely and utterly untrue, that there was an actual effort to protect our democracy by making sure that news journalists and news programs were required to serve and offer balanced and fair information on both sides. It was required, and ever since that hasn't been required, there's this wonderful article that was written by the head of the broadcasting code in Britain, where they are looking at what's happened to America since that was expired and how divisive it has become in our whole country and so polarized because there is no requirement for shows that call themselves news
Hmm.
to actually share accurate or ferry both sides information. And I really think it's important that people know that it existed before, to see the way it has affected us since 1987, what has happened, and even to look today. I truly believe that we can save our democracy. And I have to say that I'm one of these people that I'm very, 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 very concerned. I think we can, if we can communicate to people and build back trust that what they are being told is accurate. And then we can have plenty of disagreements about what to use with that information and how we want to work with it, which is what has happened prior to this, right? There was never, just because you have the same facts doesn't mean you have the same opinion. It's okay to have a different opinion based on the same facts. But
Exactly.
but the problem is that we've gotten so far away from sharing the same facts. And that is what is killing a norm in our democracy, which is an informed public.
Well, I
Who,
want to share something, and then I'm going to help. We're going to bring on our next guest, and we can come back to this a little later. But it's very interesting. I saw an interview, and this interview has to be at least 15, maybe even 20 years ago. It was at the very beginning. It stayed with me. It was at the very beginning of when social media was beginning to take off. And this interviewer said what will be the demise of American civilization as we know it. And this was before Facebook, this was before Twitter, this was before any of these other platforms, Instagram that we have now. He said the biggest uh, asset to the demise of this country will be social media. And he said, when we were kids, let's say that I wanted to take Ann Kittredge to the prom. And I went to Ann and I said, Ann, I'd really like to go to the prom with you. And you said, Ricky Skipper, I wouldn't go to the prom with you if you were the last boy on earth. And I would say, well, I'm going
I
to
would
get back.
never say that. Okay.
I know that, but I'm just saying, just if. So let's say that I went to, then I go to my best friend and I say, I slept with Ann Kittredge last night and she has cooties. And then he said, oh my God, I can't believe you're saying this. And then he tells somebody else. And then that person tells somebody else. And before you know it, Ann Kittredge has a reputation in our schools that has taken a little time to get there because people don't always check the facts, as we both know. But the real issue now is I could destroy a person's life and or career by the single push of a button.
Yeah.
Hold on to that thought. I'm gonna let you bring on our next guest. So pull the number 1 through 3, and we'll bring on the next guest. I hope they're all ready.
Okay, let's choose number 2.
And that is one of my favorite people on the planet,
Hey,
David Friedman. Thank you for being here. So, David, you can either expound upon what Ann just spoke about, or if there's something else that's on your mind that you want to talk about, the platform is now yours.
Well, Richard, to your point, there's a wonderful story about a rabbi in a small village, and he is a congregant sees him walk past the fruit stand and take a piece of fruit and walk away without paying for it. And the congregant spreads the word that the rabbi is a thief. And this gets all over. And then it gets back to the rabbi that this congregant has accused him of being a thief and that everyone knows it. So he calls the congregant in and he says, why did you say I'm a thief? And he said, well, I saw you steal a piece of fruit. And he says, well, actually, I pay the fruit stand person for 7 pieces of fruit at the beginning of the week so I don't have to stop in and then I can just take one. And the congregant says, oh my God, this is so terrible. How can I make up for this? And he said, well, there is a ritual you can do that will make up for this. And he says, what do I have to do? And he says, come to the temple at midnight and bring a feather pillow. And he says, okay, so now go to the top of the steeple and release all those feathers and come back to me. And he does it. And he said, I did that. And he said, now what should I do? He says, now go gather all those feathers. Because once you do that, getting it back is impossible.
Yeah, it's out there.
Yeah. But what I wanted to talk about, it's New Year's. And in the new year, we always make these resolutions and we say, this year I'm going to improve, and this year I'm going to do this, and this year I'm going to achieve that. And I realize that my life often is about getting somewhere instead of being here. There's a wonderful guru who said, we are not on a journey, we're just here. And so in my Thought Exchange Weekly workshop, we worked on how we live our lives in a constant state of gripping and a constant state of anxiety about the future. I had a Chinese medicine teacher who said we rarely fall below a mild state of fight or flight in our lives. We're never in rest and digest. And so we worked on, Sean and I are going through, we're selling our house, we're moving to a new fabulous apartment, but every day it's like, oh my God, is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? Did this go through? Did that go through? And it's all about the future and what's going on in LA. It's disaster, et cetera, et cetera. And the thing is how to find within yourself the place, which is who we really are, is an invisible consciousness looking at our bodies and looking at events. And like if you read Man's Search for Meaning, he was in a concentration camp and he managed to, what they can't take away is your beingness. And so we worked on what does it take, no matter what circumstance I'm in, for me to find that place that is unassailable and to know that we're always going to have, I'm worried about this and this will happen and then it doesn't or it does or whatever. And to be able to sit in the present, and it doesn't mean not feel it, not sit with, I'm terrified, I'm upset, I'm panicked, but to sit in the present and be able, it's one of my favorite expressions, to enjoy yourself. Now, if you look at the word enjoy, en means to put in joy. So I enjoy myself. the play didn't enjoy me. I enjoyed myself over the play. And we don't, to be able to enjoy ourselves and to enjoy circumstances and be present in them. And it was very interesting when we did this exercise to see how we struggle, how we want to hold on. Yeah, but what if that doesn't happen? What if this happens? And what it brings me to is that in reality, we are not in control of anything. And every single thing we do is an element of, if the word, Sean always says that we made up the word God to describe what we can't understand. And so there is something that we can't understand in everything. I don't understand how the heart is beating. I don't understand why this or that is happening. I don't understand the whole picture. Something I think is terrible could be wonderful. So how to acknowledge that we're on a little ball spinning in the middle of space and we don't know why we're here and we don't know where we're going, and to just live with that and make grace something that we fall into, something that we allow. When someone says to me, I finally decided to give up control, I say, you had it. It's
I love it.
so, so I'm looking at what is it like in all this turmoil where our house, we're selling everything in our house. So we're living in this crazy, to go, right now, I can be fine if I allow and accept that this is what's going on. It's good. I don't have to know why. I don't have to know how. And so I look at not what circumstances do to me, but what I do to myself in circumstance. Am I beating myself up? Am I gripping? Am I complaining? Am I worrying? And that I have control over, that I can choose. And we spend so much time trying to adjust circumstances so we won't have to feel anything, instead of noticing, let me choose to be present in this. And we're navigating, and everybody's navigating such challenging things. And, talking to my friends in LA, but people have gotten through things like this. And there are, I have a saying, when someone has a terrible breakup, I always say, one day you will understand what this is about. And you might even think it was a good thing that happened to you. Today is not that day. So, you're not going to feel that way today, but to hold, I don't know what this means. I don't know what this is about, but there is a place where I am just here and none of it affects me, because I am not a physical entity. I'm a spiritual entity. So I'm playing with all of that, and, working with people on letting go of, there was a book that had the 362 things to do to be spiritual. And the first one was kill off ambition. Because ambition means that you're not there. It means that there's something that has to happen for you to be okay. And if we can realize, we can want things, but I am okay. There's nothing. And when I I look at people who are having huge successes, just millions of dollars and huge things. I know they have issues of their own. They're not happier than I am. They're just in their life. And who was it, Pema Chodron, who said the only solid ground we have to stand on is that there is no solid ground to stand on.
Absolutely.
So
Well,
I'm playing with that.
we're going to bring our next guest on. I want to let everyone know that with each of our guests here, any of these topics that are being taught up, I'm going to have details about the thought exchange, about upcoming performances for Anne. All of that information will be on the YouTube channel, so that you'll be able to go in and learn a little bit more about each of our guests today, and delve a little bit deeper into who they are and what they're all about. But David, you're going to bring on our next guest. So number 1 or 2, and we'll find out who it is.
No, I was number 2, so it's 1 or 3, right? 1.
1. And that's my dear friend, Jeffrey Mark. So Jeffrey Mark, thank you for being here on our premiere episode. And you can build upon anything that Anne or David said, or you can bring up your own topic of what's on your mind today.
Well, you should have dug up Spinoza for this conversation because, good heavens. No, it's been a very long time. You know, you know, Richard knows anyway, that I've been doing this a very long time, since I was 15 years old professionally. And I don't know that I've ever been involved in this deep of an intellectual discussion on the air.
Oh, wow.
So good for all of us. I was going to bring up survival, but everything everyone is bringing up is about survival.
Mm-hmm.
The fairness doctrine I must go to only covered broadcasts, over the air broadcasts, radio and television. So that, as Anne beautifully said, to cover truthfulness, but also if you had on a guest who leaned this way or that way, your next guest had to lean the other way. So it's balanced and fair. Ronald Reagan's administration took that away to give us the Fox News channel, which I will put in quotes. They have every right to exist. Everyone has every right to watch them, but they're not a news channel. They are an opinion channel. And when people who perhaps don't have a large education or live remotely or just for whatever reasons don't know what's going on, they can be fooled into thinking that opinions are truths. And that does indeed hurt our republic. And I don't know what a good fix is for that, because in its heyday when it was working, it was only about broadcasting. Almost nothing is being broadcast anymore. Almost everything is brought to you electronically in one form or another. And I cannot imagine any Congress making a law that would cover platforms, cable, electronics, when they start putting things next to our eyes so we just see them. I can't imagine what they're going to do to cover all of that. So we as citizens are called upon to search for the truth and not just take for granted everything we hear or everything said in one place, because the baloney about the Los Angeles fires, the rumors that they were all started by liberals, so they were all started by conservatives, or whoever is pointing a finger at that person. The point is, there are people who have lost their homes and their lives and their life, and we need to help them. That's the point. But we lose those points. But those are the points of survival. Yesterday was my late partner Joel's 70th birthday. The 17th is the day he died. How does one survive losing your other half? Political regimes change. How does one survive? You're born into a religion, but your own personal beliefs don't jibe and you go in a different direction. How do you survive? You're gay and your family abandoned you like mine did. How do you survive? And I think, unfortunately, this day, January 10th, 2025, I think survival is the most important topic there can be.
And today was my dad's birthday, but it's very interesting. You brought up a point that that reminded me of an interview that I saw years ago on the Johnny Carson show. And his guest was Nancy Sinatra. And he said, I understand you're doing a political fundraiser this weekend in Palm Springs. Well, anyone who knew the Sinatras knew where they stood. But she said, yes, but I can't talk about it. Otherwise, you have to give equal time to the other party. And she never mentioned it. She never mentioned it. But I thought, what a smart idea. And, Johnny Carson he was very conservative, for those who do not know. Carol Channing was very much on the opposite. She was very liberal, and she only did his show once, and she was never asked back. And because he was very specific as to who would come on his show and who would not come on his show. So, those things were very much in place. Let's bring on Sean to wrap all of this up in a little nice bow, and then we're going to continue to have a discussion on all of this. So here he is, Sean Moninger. Hello,
Hello.
Sean.
Hello, how are you?
Sean.
Hi,
Hello,
Sean.
everybody.
Perfect person
It's,
to tie all of this into a nice bow.
well, it's funny you should say. First of all, I want to say we loved your show last week, or was it
Thank
two
you.
weeks ago? We just loved it. We'll write more about it, and but we loved it.
Thank you.
And David and I are here in the same house, except different rooms. And what I was thinking about through all this is the Four Agreements.
One of my favorite books.
Yeah, mine too.
Mine
And
too.
I thought, well, keep your word impeccable and don't take anything personally. I thought of the first two because the problem is the story we make up about everything and we personalize it.
Mhm.
Oh, there's weather. It's all about me. Oh, there's pavement. That's all about me. I it's if it rains, oh, what a terrible thing. If it rains, oh, what a beautiful thing. And so we make up a story about literally everything. And I've been working harder and harder to eliminate the story and to go within. If anybody doesn't know, I'm a unity minister, New Thought minister, and I'm not very religious, but I like the New Thought principles because I want peace in my life, and I will not create peace by ending war. But I might end war by allowing peace to prevail. And war can be between you and me. I don't need a whole big countries to be at it. It's just all it takes is two. I always say the problem with the world today is there's people in it, and and they don't all agree with me. One of my last ones I often say to Sunday sermons is, "Isn't it confusing that the people you don't like have friends?"
Oh my God, what a perfect thought.
It is.
I love that.
And so, with all this, I can't even call it political stuff, all this stuff
Mhm.
going on. And I've looked to not take it personally and to keep my word more impeccable. Well, what would my impeccability be except to stop talking about it as if I know exactly what's going on? It's just too big and too daunting to understand. And so well, for me, I go within and I ask, because there's a higher voice within me, and I ask, what's the truth here? Because I don't want to make anything up. What is the truth here? And but I do that in traffic too. Somebody cuts me off in traffic and it scares me. And I say, okay, before I have these thoughts that I want to vocalize in the car here, what's the truth here so that I don't make something up? Because I don't want to, oh, that poor thing, they're probably racing because their grandmother just had a heart attack. I don't want to do that either. I don't want to make lemonade out of some lousy lemons. They cut me off, they did whatever, and it scared me. That's facts that I know. And so I look at that and say, okay, and I feel this way. And so what can I do to assuage those feelings? Because I don't want to live in that. And a word I came up with, because I didn't want to be years ago when I used to commute from the city to Connecticut before we lived here. And the word I came up with was love. I didn't invent that word, by the way, but it was sitting there because I didn't want to be religious about it. But I thought, okay, love represents something, and it represents something positive. So if somebody scares me, I go love, 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 love. And what I noticed is I wasn't as frightened. I wasn't as rattled. I just switched the thinking and the story about it all. Love, 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 love. I cannot not be loved. And love lives in that car, loves going down the path in front of me, loves following me behind, loves in the car as me. And I would do that. And so I started doing that in my house. Because when we moved up here, I had a big house. And it made me a little anxious. So I go from room to room and say, only love lives in this room. And only love lives in this room. Because I thought that was better than there's something scary waiting before me behind this door. And there's something scary behind this door. I didn't want to live in fear. I remember one night I came in and I was here like 5 seconds and all the power went out. And I thought, okay, are they waiting for me out the front door or the back door? Or is the generator about to kick in? So I just stood still waiting, and then the generator kicked in. It was just a power outage instead of some crazy movie. And so to look at that, only love lives here, makes my life easier. And I'll tell you something, circumstances change in my life when I do that. The world shapeshifts a bit. And I start to think about the people whose actions and words scare me. And I said, what if I became willing that they became joy filled? And then I sometimes say that to people. They say, no, that means they get everything they want. How dare they? And what it really means is it seems like they get away with their behavior. And I said, but here's the thing, joy filled people don't hurt other people. And I thought, so if they all were joy filled and I were joy filled, I wouldn't hurt anybody. And perhaps they wouldn't hurt. They would change their policies. They would change their procedures. They would change their thoughts and stuff. And so, but there's the old church song, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. So how do I let it begin with me? Well, by becoming willing. And it takes a tremendous amount of work on my part and rethinking and asking to change my story that anybody wants to hurt me.
To
Andy?
your point,
Yes.
I come from a Buddhist philosophy, and so I very much believe in karma. And I've been practicing for almost 30 years, and just in the last few years, what has really I've been really focusing on is, in Buddhism, we believe that everyone has the Buddha nature. We are not a God-based religion. So, and that that karma is absolute. There is cause and effect.
Yeah, that's what New Thought is.
Yes. And so if you truly believe that the universal concept of cause and effect and karma, then ultimately, whatever you're seeing going on around you, right?
Mm-hmm.
It will have its appropriate effect. It may not be a linear time frame. We don't know the time frame. We don't control when that cause gets its effect. But if you believe it, if you believe that it is absolute, which I truly do believe, then
Mm-hmm.
there's no reason to lose sleep over it. There's no reason to just,
Yeah. No one gets away with anything.
right. Eventually, and the other side of it, that when you do something wonderful, right, there will be that effect too. That you can create causes that to build benefits for your
Absolutely.
life.
But so often we confuse effect with cause.
Yeah.
And we need to don't do that. And my God anymore is good, orderly direction. One foot in front of the other, one thought in front of the other. So it's not a person. That's how I put my thinking into action, into my feet.
But when we think about there is no time. Everything that happened, where is the past right now? It's in the present in my mind. Where is the future? It's in the present in my mind. So I remember years ago when Scott Barnes and I broke up, and I was very angry and very furious. And I was talking to Ann Renalson, and I said, I know that I'm going to get to the other side, and I'm going to say to him, that was so perfect that you broke up with me in that way at this time. And Ann looked at me and said, why not say it now? And I said, because I don't want to. I want to be angry for 30
Oh,
years.
good for
Got
you,
a story.
Ann.
I'm sticking to it.
And so the notion is that it's almost like when you said about the karma is now. We may see the effect, but when I do a good deed, I experience that. I don't have to wait for, where is my good? Because that's lack. It is already right here and now is the only place. So I can be the more, I was listening that Jimmy Carter said, I have this life. I want to just do as much good as I can with it. And I realized I'm so worried about selling the house and the moving in. What good can I do for someone right now? How can I support someone? How can I help someone? Who can I
Yay.
call? What can I write?
Yeah.
And that's all there is in life.
We're,
Is the moment.
we're talking about, I think, some control issues.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
learning to let go of control is not easy. It's very necessary for spiritual growth. You know what we can control? How we react to things. We have
Yeah.
zero control over the things. We barely have control over ourselves.
Yeah.
But how do we react? You know, some of the best advice, it's a one sentence advice. When my Joel died, I was devastated. I truly, I just did not know how to live without him. And the very first show business event that I went to was a party for Carol Cook out here in the desert.
Mm.
And Lucy Arnaz was there. And I guess I was not looking very happy. And Lucy walked over and put her arms around me. It was the first time I'd seen her since Joel died. And she said, "How are you handling all of this?" I said, "Not good, Lo." She looked at me and she said, "Jeffrey, you can spend the rest of your life mourning him, or you can spend the rest of your life celebrating him. It's your book. You can write it any way you like."
What great advice.
What a life-changing sentence that was for me.
Yeah. Good old Lucy.
Mhm.
And she's a salt. Lucy
Yeah.
Arnaz, years and years ago, her mother called her an earth mother. And I understand why.
Yeah. Yeah. She's
Because
amazing.
in the last 30 years, whenever I've had enormous problems, Lucy had just the right sentence for it.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
that is part of giving. We're talking about giving, not looking to receive anything, being a blessing. I pray every day that whomever I come in contact with, I be a blessing to them.
Mm.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Not,
Good prayer.
not to receive anything. You know, Richard knows this already, but the way I dress, I wasn't born with sequins.
I
Um,
was. Yeah.
I will ignore the 17 punchlines that just hit me and go forward with it's I don't know how to be happy any longer unless I choose to be.
Yep.
Even a thought. I have no idea why I brought the sequence, by the way. I had a point and I completely forgot
I'm
what
sorry.
it was.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. And it's age, you know, this happens. Is changing how I react. Oh, I have to do this and this and this and this today. Oh, when I get through that, then I can relax. And I'm training myself still, not get through it,
That's right.
enjoy it.
Yes. You know, Jeffrey, to your point, I have a friend and he's in his 60s and he met for the first time this man who he fell in love with and they were going to get married. And I was sitting next to this man at a wedding and he was the most lovely, wonderful man. And I thought, how did you get to 60 and you were never married? So I said, were you ever in a relationship? And he said, oh, yes. I was in a 27-year relationship. And I said, what happened? And he said, well, I was making dinner. My husband called, said, I'll be home in 20 minutes. And a half hour later, the police came to the door and said he was killed in a car accident, just like that. So I said, oh my God, how did you deal with that? And he said, well, I fell apart completely. And I went to a trauma therapist who tried to help me get through it and release it, etc. Nothing. He said, and then I went to a Buddhist therapist who said, this is what happened. You were cooking dinner and your husband called and then the police came and he is dead. And this is the way it feels. It just is. And he said, it's 7 years later and I am no less bereft than I was 7 years ago. But because I can be with it, I can love my next person fully. And we keep trying to get rid of things. There's nothing to get rid of. And the pain and everything.
You know what I did last night? I'll be quick, I promise. Because it was his birthday, I got all dressed up and I took us out to dinner.
Oh, nice.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
I did the exact same thing I would have done if he were here. I invited his spirit to join me.
Mhm.
And that's how I celebrated him being 70. I'm not going to lie to you. I cried yesterday.
Sure.
I posted on Facebook about it and forgot that I posted it because of all the fires and things. And I opened up my computer and look, you see stuff. And there his faces were staring at me. Yeah, I cried for 10 minutes. We were together for 47 years. I think he's worth 10 minutes of crying.
How long is he gone, Jeffrey?
It'll be 6 years next week.
Okay.
There's a great poem. I wish that and some of you may even know it. Tyne Daly read it at Carol Channing's memorial service.
Yes, yes.
And it's to always think of these that we love as being in the next room, because they are.
Yes.
And, and that basically, I mean, I am surrounded, just sitting here at my desk, with photographs of the people that have shaped who I am today. My mom, I spoke with her the morning of the day that she passed on. There was absolutely no indication when I said goodbye to my mom that would be the last physical conversation I would have with her, because I still talk to her. And
Oh, I
talk to
gotcha.
her, and I talk to Carol, and I talk to all of these people daily that are still very much a part of who and what I'm all about. That they're all around me at all times, and I think of them as being in the next room.
Well, I went a different way because both Richard and I lost our mothers last year. And I went a little bit of a different way. Not that I expected to. I just, I kind of started having all of these incredibly deep thinking about my mother and what's happening to her now and all these different things. And after a few months, I realized I 100% didn't care. I don't care. I don't care if she exists in another realm. I don't care if our definition of reincarnation is accurate. Not even nothing about me cares. My mother is my mother based on what I think and feel about her. And when I have my moments of grief, I love them. And I love them because they exist because of the love we shared. Without the love, there wouldn't be this. And whether I'm a performer or are all human beings like this, but I love to feel. I love to feel things, and I love to feel them deeply. And so, the holidays were a little bit rough, but rough in the way of more. I may have had a little bit more concern about people around me in how they were, going to interpret what I was allowing myself, than the fact that I really totally embraced the fact that, darn it, lucky me, that I loved this person. They may not in any way, shape, or form exist. I don't need to talk to them or anything. I get now to continue whatever kind of relationship I want with them based on the memories I have. And I'm very at peace with that.
Well,
And
you
it
know what?
scares me for my own death, because I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't care.
What's so interesting is that what I was saying before, if you really look at it, the only way we experience the world is in our thoughts and sensations observed by us. So,
Yeah.
frankly, I cannot prove that you're even there. I know I experience you. And people say, isn't that lonely? There's no one out there. And I say, it's not lonely at all. You're all in here.
Mhm.
And so we are what we are seeing in front of us is our creation. What I think of you as
While he's fixing that, I have a thought that goes
David, you're
something
not on. You're not on.
something that Anne said. One of the things that poisons, I think, our spiritual being, our being able to handle and survive, is when we do care about what other people think of what we look like, what we said, what we own, what we don't own, what we do, who we sleep with. Richard, am I allowed to use naughty words on this program?
If you want.
Okay. There came a point.
my cam is on, but
Tell him to log
is
off.
my
and come
volume
back
on?
There we are. There we are, sir. I'll finish my point and let David
Please.
continue.
No, this is not. I'm not on anymore.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
Am I on? Oh, I'm
Yes.
hearing you very softly. But so, in other words, whatever we're seeing in the world is nothing.
Sorry.
That's
Fine. Go ahead. Finish, David.
Whatever we're seeing in the world is our thought. It's, and we decide that this person's terrible, this person's wonderful. And we're completely making that up. And so I said the world is a mirror of our thoughts. That doesn't mean that we're causing the world to happen. It means that whatever we see in the world, we're only seeing our thoughts. So if I want to know what I'm thinking, if I'm being tormented, I'm thinking I'm tormented. And it's not a matter of changing the other people. It's a matter of changing my thinking, and I will see the world differently. And
Yeah.
okay,
Well,
let's see.
very quickly, and then Jeffrey, I want you to finish that thought. It's like walking into a room. If you walk into a room commanding a presence, everyone's going to gravitate to that because you're that person in the room that people want to be with. If you slink into a room, pretty much wanting to be invisible, to sit in a corner and not be a part of what's going on, that's going to be your experience as well. But Jeffrey, I want you to finish your thought before you forget it, or before we any of us forget it.
Well, it's two thoughts were married together, talking about caring what other people think and dealing with other people. Decades and decades ago, you all know Jim David, the wonderful comedian.
Yes.
And there's a woman named Linda David, no relation, who was a big cabaret artist in New York in the 70s and 80s. In fact, we did an off-Broadway show together. And I were all waiters at Beefsteak Charlie's in the old Lindy's restaurant. And there was this wonderful woman from Thailand who was a server there as well. And just dealing with all of the energy of all the people who would come there who weren't necessarily very nice. And she'd freak out. I'd say, her name was Addie. Addie, what's the problem? I love my job. It's the Pippins. She couldn't say people. It's the Pippins. It's the fucking Pippins. I can't stand the fucking Pippins. And the other quick thing was, these days when someone gives me an opinion that I have not asked for, are you my boss? No. Are you paying my rent? No. Are you giving me sexual pleasure? No. Well, then please lick a hairy, unwashed part of my body. Because it doesn't matter. Your opinion doesn't matter. My opinion matters. It's my life. And the people who love me will give me honesty. And what you're giving me is absolutely worthless. I shouldn't waste one erg of energy on it. And I don't.
Well, I'll say something, and then I'm going to give each of you, I've got some random questions like I used to do in the old days that I want to get back to. And then I'm going to have each of you give your final word of the day. But, when this election happened this year, I went to bed, like many of us who are on our side of the fence, went to bed distraught that night. And when I woke up the next morning, I absolutely felt as if the weight of the world had been lifted off of me. And the reason I felt that at that moment is because I had an epiphany moment. I realized that I had spent 9+ years of my life waiting for the shoe to drop, based on what pundits are telling us might or might not happen. And so, it was just, one of those things where I felt that I'm not going to allow that anymore. I'm going to have control over what I will allow to live up here. But I'm going to go around each of you, like I just said. I'm going to start with you, Anne, and just finish this statement. Most valuable lesson that you feel, I'm going to go back to your last thing. What do you think is the most valuable lesson that you were taught by your mom?
To love, to always choose love, and to believe that you have a right to be treated with the respect and dignity that you deserve. But if you really care about someone and they are not treating you that way, it is important to make an effort to heal that relationship.
Great. And Jeffrey, your question is, you to me are very grounded in who you are today, and it's taken you a lifetime to get there. But the question is, throughout your career, do you feel that you've ever been gossipy, flighty, or superficial on any level?
He's a comedian.
Okay. No, I'm gonna take it seriously.
Yeah.
Okay, apart and aside from whatever I might say on doing stand-up and that kind of
Right.
thing. Richard knows this. When I'm not in a spotlight, I'm not on. I don't just continuously tell jokes, and I'm not really a joke teller. I'm a storyteller. I'm more Danny Thomas than, you know, one-line joke talk.
Bob Hope.
Yeah. I think at the beginning of my career, when I was doing off-Broadway shows and the one Broadway show I did and singing and doing comedy in nightclubs, because I was so young, you know, I started at 15 professionally.
Mhm.
And I was 15 as an adult, meaning I never played kids. I just started my life because I got kicked out. I think I fell to what I saw, which was backstage gossip, 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 enormous profanity, and enormous effeminacy. But I thought that's how I had to be to fit in. And I'm sure in those days, I gossiped and I gloated, but I was so devoted. When I got clean and sober at 30, that changed completely. And I realized how harmful, not just to the other person, but to me, gossip is. And when I hear gossip, I try to stop it.
Mhm.
I think Richard knows this. I got thrown out of a party once because they were gossiping about Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz Jr. about an event. Well, I happened to have been at the event. I was there for it. And they just were telling lies. And I said, look, these are friends of mine, number one. Number two, you're not telling the truth. And they threw me out of the party. And it's like, good riddance, goodbye.
Yeah.
Yay, I dodged a bullet. So I stay away. To me, gossiping on what you're talking about is toxic. And I
Yeah.
don't want to be around it.
Okay. Sean, your question. What do you feel in today's world is really worth fighting for?
Oh, peace of mind. Peace of mind. How do you put it? I don't like to do anti. It's not get, as I said before, not get rid of. I guess acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, acceptance is worth fighting for, and so it's an inside job. But yeah, in today's world, to accept what is and accept what isn't.
Wow.
I think
Absolutely.
yeah, that'll
That's
do.
good. David, name one thing worth sharing from the week that you just had.
I think the thing worth sharing is the thought exchange experience we had yesterday, that my happiness is not dependent on circumstance. And so I've had a week filled with circumstance, and it gave me a chance to practice enjoying myself in circumstances. If I don't have these circumstances, the circumstances are healing. So to look and go, thank you for this. That's what I would say.
That's great. Well, I want to thank you all for helping us to launch our first show.
Thank you.
You know, anyone who's watching the show today, please leave your comments on YouTube. Share this program if you can, and tell other people about it. That will help with the ranking of the show and keeping us going. I'm going to give my closing remarks as I do with every show, but I'm going to add another caveat to it today, just to see who's paying attention out there. So, as I do at the end of every one of my shows, yesterday I was watching the funeral of Jimmy Carter. And Jimmy Carter's grandson said that, you know, I think it was his grandson that said this, that, you know, till the very end of his life where he could no longer do it anymore, he still continued to teach Sunday school in the church that he grew up in. And the last thing that he left everybody was to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. And any of you who know me know that I say that at the end of every one of my shows. I tell everyone to go to your Facebook friends list. And today I'm going to say, reach out to the 6th name on the list. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, a phone call. And let that person know the impact that they've made on your life. But I'm going to add one more thing. I want you to ask that 6th person to contact me. And the first 5 people that get back to me because of this, I will ask to be on the show next week. So that's so this is what you need to do. And they can come on and tell us what's on their mind. As I've always said, Sean, you taught me this. We may all be in the same storm, but we may be in different size boats. And I always say, I don't care what size boat you're on, as long as you have a skipper by your side. I'm going to give a shameless plug. And if any of you have anything to plug, and by the way, Anne, I have the information for your upcoming show, so I will bring that up on screen when you speak. But on Thursday night, I'm going to be doing my celebration of Hello, Dolly on the actual 61st anniversary of Dolly opening on Broadway. It's going to be at Valley Cottage Library here in Rockland County. And what's very exciting is that one of the local high schools is going to be doing Hello, You Know Who. And the 2 young actresses that are playing Dolly Levi, both the matinee Dolly and the evening Dolly, are going to be my guest next week.
Oh, nice.
So if you get a chance, come and see the next generation of Dollies that are coming along. I'm going to leave the screen now. I'm going to turn it over to you, Jeffrey. And when you finish, you will turn it over to someone else. And the last person who speaks, when you say goodbye, the show will end. You don't have to worry about how to end the show. Thank you all. And this week, let's keep each other in our thoughts and our prayers. We truly are in all of this together, regardless of what size boat you're on. And with that, I'm going to leave the screen and I'm turning it over to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Richard. Well, folks, keep all those folks in Los Angeles in your prayers, please. So many of my friends are hurting. We need your emotional support. Catch me on Jeffrey Mark Plays Ella, my show every week, where I play the music of Ella Fitzgerald. And as a wonderful woman who used to do the weather locally in New York, every night used to say, and I close my shows with, God bless and have a happy. Anne.
Okay. I'm going to really enjoy the rest of this evening thinking about this conversation because it was really interesting. So thank you all. Really, you really triggered some good stuff for me. I would be remiss in not mentioning that tomorrow I will be celebrating the 39th anniversary of my marriage with my husband.
Congratulations.
He's the most wonderful man in the world. I wish I could say otherwise, but he is. He is remarkable. And I'm very excited about that. And then the very next day, my youngest turns 21. So I've got a full weekend to look forward to. It's celebrating family, and which is very, very important to us. And I'm so grateful to be a part of this day. Here's to creating value for ourselves and others and our families. And I will hand it over to Sean.
Well, gang, thank you everybody for this delightful hour together. And we let's just remember, let there be peace. Let it begin with you. Let it begin with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. So I encourage everybody. I have a new book coming out. I have all sorts of projects I'm doing, but I don't need to plug them. I just want to say this week, see if you can find that place in you that's unassailable no matter what is going on. Okay? Bye.